What is up, guys? It is Joe. We're back. We're talking all about the Cats, specifically K-State football, as some more news in the transfer portal has popped up this week. It's been a busy week for K-State football news, whether that be at the high school recruiting levels or in the transfer portal. Today's video is going to focus more on the portal. We've got a couple of different names to talk about, but before I do, let me tell you this. If this is your first time tuning in or your 1,000th time tuning in, first of all, thank you for being here. Second of all, I'm trying to hit 3,000 subs here in the near future. I guess I don't really have a timeline for that, but it is a big help to support the YouTube channel. Consider hitting that subscribe button if you want some more K-State content on your feed, as it does help me out immensely. Now in the thumbnail, I wanted to mention it because there's a public visitor that's been known about. I know there's a couple of guys that have been kind of exploring the option with Kansas State, but one was mentioned here yesterday, and I wanted to talk about it in the video. The first visitor set, I guess maybe not officially, the date isn't officially out there yet, but the first guy exploring the option for a Kansas State visit is none other than a linebacker from Fresno State, Phoenix Jackson. This report was originally noted by On3's Pete Nakos, and the original way it went down was kind of interesting. I'll give you some background on Phoenix Jackson, but I do want to start by talking about where his visits lie. He's one of the highest regarded coverage linebackers in the country, especially in this portal class, so a big name to hit the portal for sure. Initially, off his entrance into the transfer portal, he told Pete Nakos that he's working on his visit schedule, and as of right now, he had visits to Georgia Tech and Auburn. Now, some of that changed. A couple hours later, that changed around, and Nakos released an updated quote tweet of this saying some more changes to the schedule. The Auburn visit is still on, but Georgia Tech's been called off. He'll now visit Kansas State and West Virginia. He still has an official visit set to Oklahoma State. Obviously, I don't really see Oklahoma State as a threat per se, but obviously wanted to read a little bit more background on this. The initial schedule looked like this. He was going to visit Georgia Tech on the 11th and the 12th of December. Then he was going to see Auburn December 13th and 14th, and then make the trip to Oklahoma State December 19th and 20th. So where that puts Kansas State, I'm not sure the officials. My guess would be we probably take the fill of maybe a Georgia Tech, considering he's visiting Kansas State. I would assume he's probably going to be Kansas State either the 11th and 12th. Maybe he splits it up and does sometime in between there. But I wanted to read what Chris Hummer did have to say. Maybe it's Chris Hummer, so I apologize if I'm butchering that, from 24/7 Sports. But he says Fresno State linebacker Phoenix Jackson promises to be one of the top overall linebackers in the portal, and his early visit list reflects that. The 6'8", 218-pound Jackson has already set portal visits to Georgia Tech. He'll then see Auburn and then see Oklahoma State. Obviously, that's changed since this article is written, but still worth noting. Jackson posted 48 tackles, 7 TFLs, and a pair of interceptions this past season for the Bulldogs. He's one of the top covered linebackers in the country, ranking 3rd nationally in PFF's coverage grade among linebackers this season. Now, I'm not one that's going to try to sell you here on the PFF coverage grade, but I do know what that did for Austin Romaine, and Austin Romaine graded out as one of the best linebackers in the country from an all-around standpoint, as for PFF's ranking system, whatever they may be. Now, in addition to the stats noted there, I do want to kind of recap that because I might have been going a little too fast, but Jackson totaled 49 total stops this past season, 4 sacks on the year, 1 forced fumble, and 2 picks, as well as a pick returned 89 yards to the house. That play helped him earn Mountain West Player of the Week honors for that 89 yards pick 6. In that game, he also had a forced fumble and 9 tackles against Hawaii, a big week for Phoenix Jackson. He's a massive name to know for reasons. Obviously, you've got some big names on the schedule for where he's visiting, but for Kansas State specifically, there's going to be some turmoil in that linebacker room. You've already seen 2 or 3 guys from that position hit the transfer portal. I know Cam Salas is out the door. Terry Kirksey as well is out the door. So a couple of different dudes on the move to the transfer portal, guys that I didn't really see getting a ton of play time or ton of run. More so depth pieces in the event of emergency. A break glass in case of emergency. Those guys hit the portal, they're out the door, they're heading somewhere else. And then in addition to that, Alec Marenko, the linebacker transfer from last year from UNM, didn't have much. I don't think he even saw a snap for Kansas State on defense. Maybe he saw some in special teams, I didn't see it, but did not hit in the portal. Maybe they have more faith going forward. But obviously not seeing a single snap is tough, especially when you're in contention from a Tennessee linebacker that was a really good player at his new college for Memphis. But with Kansas State's linebacker room, you've got Austin Moore out the door. He's graduating, probably going to have an NFL career. Alec Marenko didn't see the field. Asa Newsom's coming off another season-ending injury. I pray for his health because he's a stud when he is on the field. It just takes a little bit of stuff going his way. So you can read that however you want. I think the biggest position of need is going to be wide receiver and maybe some on the O-line. But realistically, I think the linebacker spot is going to be one of the bigger ones on defense. I've also released a couple videos in the past talking about the secondary. I think the secondary is going to be a big one to watch, specifically with safeties. Cornerbacks, DBs, we'll see what happens there. But with Phoenix Jackson, it's a big visit to note. And to take that one step further, I think it makes sense that linebacker is one of your biggest needs. Austin Romaine's one of the best linebackers in the country. There's no way around that. I think he's blossomed into a stud of a player. That development from year 1 to year 2, even just year 1 alone as a true freshman coming out and making plays, thrown into the fire. Once you see Deuce Green go down, you have a couple different dudes get be banged up for season-ending injuries. His development has been crucial for this football team, and he truly is the best linebacker in the Big 12 in my mind. But that being said, I do think the receiver spot is going to be the biggest position of need this offseason. Currently, you haven't had anybody hit the portal. I mean, you'll see what happens here in the next couple of days. Technically, the portal doesn't open until the 9th, so there is still some time for the officials to come through. Some guys will wait till after the bowl game, some won't. Jace Brown's the big talking point. Will K-State retain Jace Brown? I would hope so, but I know he's expressed some intentions to hit the portal already through private sources. We'll see where that lies at the end of the season. It could be something where they figure out an NIL deal. It could be something where they figure out playing time, whether they figure out a rotation, whatever the case is. But I do think Jace is going to be someone to study this offseason, so someone to keep an eye on. We'll have to keep an eye on what happens there. But the big name that we've talked about is Casey Concepcion. I have a video on the channel dedicated to KC, so be sure and check that out. But K-State's already seen some public offers sent out. And I want to mention that not all public offers are going to be reported. Like, some guys will get the offer, whether it be a big name that we haven't heard yet. Some dudes will hear it and they'll get it. That's great. They won't tweet about it and say, God bless, thank you so much, Kansas State. They just keep their business quiet. So a lot of these dudes haven't been mentioned yet that have received Kansas State offers. But there's a couple guys that have gotten public offers that I do want to mention. For the O-line position, you got Jack Tanner, a Tulsa offensive lineman transferring. I don't know a ton about Jack Tanner, but honestly, at some point, you got to trust Connor Riley. As a offensive line coach, I trust where he's at. Chris Kleiman, their development of offensive line guys. I will trust that if they're recruiting a guy in the portal that's an offensive lineman, I trust they're going to be good for Kansas State. You saw what they did with Easton Kilty and a couple of other guys. Development-wise, hopefully you get another couple years from a couple of different dudes on that O-line. We'll see what happens. I know that seniors can go just like that. So the offensive line is going to be a big spot to recruit. Receiver, like I mentioned, you've got two dudes that have already expressed public offers. I would assume behind the scenes, Casey's already got his offer early, but both are really captivating young players that are exciting to watch. Sticking on the Tulsa front, you had Joseph Williams, a freshman at Tulsa, hit the transfer portal. He had a lot of highlights this season. If you look up his name, you'll find him mossing some different dudes on the timeline, whatever you look for. 30 grabs for 588 and 5 scores. He's a jump ball receiver type dude, but can create separation as well. Someone that kind of mimics Jace's game, but he does have more aggression at the point of attack. So Joseph Williams, definitely a name to watch. And the other dude that I'm excited about is Jalen Moss from Fresno State. Same thing with Phoenix Jackson, transferring from the Bulldogs from Fresno State. He's played 2 seasons of college football, both at Fresno State. As a sophomore, this is big. I mean, maybe not even biggest season. I don't want to make it sound like that. He followed the Casey Concepcion front, where it's a big true freshman season, and then a little bit of a dip off as a sophomore. As a sophomore this season, had 48 grabs for 563 and 4 touchdowns in his 2-year career. So as a true freshman, had a ton of yards. In 2 years with the program, he's had 103 grabs for 1,269 yards and 10 scores. Another dude that's kind of an aggressive receiver, but can create separation. There's going to be more names that hit the fold, whether that be, secondary guys, O-line guys, D-line guys. There's going to be a lot to watch, but I did want to make this quick video to show a guy that's headed to Manhattan at some point. We'll see what that date looks like. I'm not sure what it looks like right now. He'll probably replace one of the, Georgia Tech visit with somebody, whether that's Kansas State or West Virginia, whatever the case be. But just wanted to talk a little bit about guys hitting the campus, because once they get on campus, that is such an easier recruiting tool. Once they're on campus, that's a dude that's a focal point already of the offseason. But we'll see what happens with Phoenix Jackson, a guy that I think a lot of people would be excited to see. And his body could fill a couple of different roles, whether that needs to be a deep third coverage type guy or a guy in the run game. So something to consider for Kansas State football as we go through the transfer portal cycle. But that's going to do it for today's video, guys. I appreciate each and every one of you for watching. I'll talk to you here soon. I imagine we'll have more portal content every other day, at least every day right now it feels like. So we'll see what happens there. But I appreciate all the love and support on the channel, and I will talk to you guys soon. Go Cats!